If it's your first time joining Reframe, it's a series that we're actually going to be hosting regularly now for consultancies and agencies. And the whole idea is that it's very much practitioner led. We want to hear stories out from the wild of how agencies and consultancies are rethinking what great client work actually looks like right now. So it's not a product demo, it's not the panel where everyone just agrees. We want to really see the real work and real stories happening from people on the forefront. No, that makes it sound like it's a war, and sometimes it kind of sounds like it is, to be honest. And today we're bringing in really people who've actually learned something from the process. And today our guest is exactly that. Stephanie, say hi, Stephanie. Stephanie from Tangity is joining us. Today she's the head of UK and Ireland, and she's going to be speaking about something relatively uncomfortable, like it's in the title itself, right? So we're going to be talking about the uncomfortable truth about the value and teams and redesigning design. And really uncomfortable is where the real work is happening in that title. We're not here to reassure you. We're here to talk about the stuff that's genuinely hard. And what's unique about Stephanie's perspective is that she actually doesn't come from design background herself. She comes from management consultancy, and she has over the years become a design advocate because of the projects and the teams that she's been involved in. So she came up through strategy consulting, like from really big companies like Bain and Capgemini, and became one of design's most vocal advocates because she saw it from the outside first. So her read on design is her read is very unique because she understands what design is capable of, especially from a business perspective, and what it needs to become now, especially with the AI disruption that people or agencies are facing. So I won't steal her thunder. She can probably share a lot more about her experience through her talk. So I'll pass it over to you, Stephanie. Let's all just give her a warm welcome to this session.
Thank you. That is a very warm welcome. I feel like you've basically rolled out the red carpet, and now I need to fill the gap. I'm gonna share my screen in a second. I've prepared a few slides. It's not gonna be death by PowerPoint. Don't worry. My management consultant background is not like gonna flood you with all the slides. So I'll keep it lean. And what I'm really hoping for before I introduce myself today is I'm not here to tell you what the future of design definitely is going to look like. I'm not here to say these are the tools that we need to use. I'm here to share a perspective. I'm here to share what I'm learning when talking to my team, when talking to clients. But it's really an invitation for us to have a conversation as well. So even within like the first half an hour, when I'm going to share a few nuggets, we have some activities in between that on the one side should nudge you to reflect about yourself, but then should also enable us to just have a conversation about it. And why I'm saying that is because I don't know how you feel, but I'm quite tired of LinkedIn, where all the leaders and advocates and experts tell me what the future is going to look like, because I'm of the perception that no one knows, and it's a big guessing game, and it's a try and error. And that's the way I'm approaching my job, but I also want to approach this session. So let me bring up the presentation. So you should see the Miro board now. And if I go into presentation mode, let's see if that works. To set up. Can you see this now? Can you see the header of redesigning design? Yes, I can see a thumbs up. Perfect. All right. So let me just make this a little bit smaller. I'm working on a small MacBook, and I'm trying to have 3 applications at the same time, which is a bit of a challenge, so bear with me. But okay, let's talk a little bit about who I am and why I'm actually here and what I'm talking to you about. So Jessica already said, I'm not a designer. So I came from management consulting, And I first worked with big corporates back in the days, this is 15 years ago, that were feeling a threat of startups eating all of their market share. And I was often asked by the clients back then, how can we become more like startups? And I learned over time when someone asked me later on, do you want to build a design studio? And I didn't really know what it was. I learned that design was actually the secret sauce that startups were leveraging. They were really understanding what does that user need, what is that user gap, and they built their products around that. And that's how they became a threat to corporates. So that was kind of my introduction to design, not necessarily from studying it, from learning the process, but having that aha moment when clients told me like, we don't know what to do, we need to work differently. It's by adopting the design process, they would actually be successful. And that's how I was introduced to the wonderful world of design. And I've then, when I said yes to that challenge about building a design team, I've been now running design teams for, I think, 8 years. I've built one in Germany, and now I live in the UK. So I loved seeing in the chat that there's some people from Bavaria, but there's also some people from London. So you're basically representing two parts of my heart as a group today as well. So that's it. I don't want to talk more about myself because we're here to talk about design and how we're changing. So let's dig into it a little bit. What I've been seeing over the years is that we as designers, we often had to actually defend our seat at the table. So while way back it was about, can you make this look nice? Can you make this look pretty? Eventually there was a seat at the table where we were defining the product strategy. So we were represented. And I think that's the right place for us to be. But equally now, I'm seeing that we're actually questioned a lot. And it feels like the rules are changing and we need to start defending our seat at the table again. And there was a moment, it must have been probably around 1.5 years ago. I was at an event that we were hosting as a company, and it was obviously about AI. And I was approached by a person I hadn't met before. They came from product. And they said to me straight up after dinner, so you must be really worried about your team, that you need to that you're not going to have a job in the future anymore. And I just looked at this person. I'm like, what? So that was a nice introduction. But my immediate reaction was like, no, I'm actually not worried because it's not about making designs and producing designs. It's about understanding the user need, the human need. And that is a skill that will always be relevant. But I hadn't really thought about that in a level of detail when they just called this out 1.5 years ago. But it started to make me think. And it started to make me think around, if this is what people believe now, we probably need to find a different way on explaining what the role of design is in the future. And this materialized over the last 1.5 years. I've been faced by clients who told me, I'm sure you can do this 70% faster now. So we don't need to spend 3 months on a discovery, but we can go to product within like 2 or 3 weeks, right? Or we don't need the designers anymore at all because our developers can now use Claude Design and then we can do it without the design. So it keeps coming back. So there are clients out there and there are people out there that might not be from our world that are truly questioning our world right now. And that's a reality. And what I think we have to do is not ignore it, but find a way on how we position design and how we explain design and the role of design in the future. So before I dive into that, how I'm currently redefining design for our teams, is I wanted to understand from you where you are. So where are you on this journey from both angles? Like, are you excited about what's ahead? And how do you feel about the future? But also, how are you individually changing right now? Or how are you individually learning and changing what you're doing? So Jessica, if you can help me, I think we have a QR code. We have our first kind of activity ready for you, just to read the room and see a little bit on where we are as a group.
Hopefully, give us a thumbs up if you're able to access the code. If it's hard to, if you're not a fan of QR, I also put the link in chat. So you can just head to miro.com/join and enter the code there. Lovely. I can see most people seem to be able to access. Perfect.
So we have these two questions for you. One is more the mindset question, and like, how are you feeling right now? Are you like energized about what's possible, or are you more on the anxious and I don't really know what's coming? And I should have said that before, probably. Don't answer in like what you think others want to hear, but really reflect on how you feel right now. Because I think there's a magic in that to be honest, and I will reflect on that later on. And the second question is, how are you acting on it? So are you experimenting a lot, or are you more watching from the sidelines currently? So I can't see the answers right now, Jessica. Can you see it?
I'm not seeing it. I'm logged in on my phone and I'm not seeing anything yet.
Same. If you don't mind, Steph, just
something.
wait, give me a
It says
moment.
on the phone, it says waiting for next activity.
Yes, it does. I'm also, if you don't mind, Steph, just heading back one slide back
So
and then trying that again.
should I do it again?
There. Is everyone seeing it now?
Yes.
Perfect. Thank you. Okay,
So
curious to see what the answers are like.
Now I see the results.
There.
Okay, so I see a lot of energized people, which is great. Probably why you signed up to this.
To be honest, personally, I'm going between energized and sometimes really anxious. So
yeah,
also wouldn't be surprised.
I go through waves. There's like weeks where I'm like, I've cracked it, I now know it, and then something else comes up, and I'm like, now I need to reinvent myself again. But yeah, looks like there's a similar kind of, we're leaning towards like energized and active, but there's also a few voices in the room that like, I'm not sure what's coming, more watching from the sidelines. Very interesting. So we're scoring on like a 7. Cool. Thank you for giving us that temperature check. I'll come back to that later when we'll talk about the team and my team and what I'm seeing. So I'd say we move on, and I'm now going to give you a little bit about where I see the opportunity land for us right now in the design world. So bear with me, right? This is complex. I'll try to break it down, but let's see how clear I can be on that message. So what I'm seeing right now is, in the past, intelligence was very good. So people that had expertise and knowledge were the people that were paid the most, and they were like the most wanted resource. And that has clearly changed through AI and through the access of knowledge that we have now. So the result is intelligence is everywhere. We call this welcome to the intelligence economy. So basically, every company, every individual can generate ideas, you can make decisions, you can produce work at scale, and when leveraging all of these AI tools. And everything becomes so much faster, right? You can now create things and output much, much faster than you were able to do before. But there is a catch. And I think this is what we have been seeing in the last month when you look at what companies launch. And this is when everyone actually uses the same tools, you actually start getting the same answers, because we leverage the same models, we leverage the same data, and that leads to the same output. And it's like a wheel that's spinning, because the more the AI spreads, the more everyone starts looking alike. So I don't know if you've done a little bit of, like, I've been looking into banking apps, for example. All of the banking apps are currently launching AI assistants. All of them look the same and feel the same, and they talk to you in the same way. So what you're seeing is like everyone is racing to adopt AI and launching new features and functionalities. But what companies are actually giving up is their uniqueness. So they're opting for speed, but the originality, or what made them unique, is actually going down, because it's about leveraging same models, same data, same process. So what you can also like translate this to is a little bit like intelligence is becoming a utility. Like if you think about electricity, for example, no one wins who has electricity. What you need to do is use electricity and then build upon electricity. So that was an analogy that actually resonated with me a lot. So now you have intelligence and you have knowledge and you have data, but that's not going to get you anywhere. It's what you build on top of that. And there's an article I've read recently that's referencing the term organizational knowledge drift. So this is how you can frame this. It's like you're giving up your specific competitive edge, like your instinct, your expertise, your craft. All of that is slowly eroding because you're going for the same of the same of the same. And we as users can see the results, but I think we're in a moment right now where a lot of leaders that take that decision and say, you need to launch things faster, you need to adopt more AI, or we need to be part of that race. They're not really looking at the consequence and the numbers that come out of that sameness and come out of that lack of differentiation. And none of that is new. I think there's been a development that I want to show you in a second. But I think this is another moment where I would like to pause, is where I want to give you a question and a reflection of your own company. And just without knowing yet where this is leading, I want to ask you the question is, what do you think your company is unique? What's truly unique in your organization right now that makes customers, clients, whatever you work for, whatever your product you work for, your company you work in, makes people adopt it, wanting to use it? What's that unique sauce? So let's see what comes up.
Just share the code. It should also still be you should still be able to access it on your mobile, but if not, I reshare the code there.
Human interaction, I can see coming up. Deep knowledge of the why of development, not just the how. Interesting. Zach is saying we play nicely in the ecosystem. Customers include competitors, partners, collaborators of one another. Okay, so you're really well connected in your ecosystem. Rokyo, excuse me if I can't pronounce the names right, giving users control and ownership. I see creativity, behavioral science, risk, creative approach, and engineering background. Interesting. And those are really, really powerful answers, because I feel like this is definitely not something that is just a BAU intelligence. That is something that you put on top of it: human interaction, creativity, experience. And if that is what you feel is unique to your organization, that's something that we will need to find a way on how to retain that in that age where everything feels like it's the same of the same. So second question, quick one, and then we're going to move on. What's something you know that your competitors won't be doing? So before I ask you about what are you currently unique for, like when you think about the future, can you foresee something that your competitors won't be doing that your organization will be doing or continue doing so? Slowing down. Wish I knew, impossible to say. Love that answer. We focus more on success and craft than profit. Great. I'd love to work for that company. Using barriers as inspiration. Then using AI to scale. Thinking before they use AI. Great answer. Taking the client view. Great. Looks like sounds like you're working for very exciting companies. So again, this is just a nudge on saying like what's unique right now and how are we going to be unique in the future. And now it's about understanding how to retain that. So I said before, like we've been at this point where we had abundance of things, and then design came in to actually create a uniqueness. So I want to run you through a little bit of a timeline of moments that might actually resonate with you, that you say, yeah, I've been on that journey, I've been part of that journey, or I've heard of that journey, and I want to relate back on what the role of design was. So when we think back to, I think none of us were alive back then, post-World War II, that was when mass production was coming up. So the market suddenly was flooded with products. But there wasn't a differentiation of products. So this is when advertising came in. So advertising came in to actually give it a human story. And suddenly the thing of brand was born. So it wasn't just flour, but it was a specific type of flour. Or in this example, the rice, it was a specific story around that rice. Then we had more examples. And I'm not going to go into all of these details, but maybe some where you were involved from the 80s onwards. We felt like products became more complex and it was more difficult to understand what that product would stand for. So this is when UX came in and gave that easiness of understanding that product and really navigating through that product and understanding how to use that product. And then eventually UX became commodity and normal, and everyone had a good UX. And then it's like, okay, how do I differentiate next level? And this is when design came in to look at the entire journey, the end-to-end journey, and the experience around a product, making it seamless, designing every single touch point, designing every single interaction and relationship. So what you basically see is there's a pattern. So there was an abundance of things, and that created sameness. And then creativity came in, and it just moves up a level, and it restored the value of that product or of that organization. And with AI now, it's actually quite similar, as I was trying to explain in the beginning. It's just even faster. So it feels like we're in this flywheel, and it's spinning and spinning. And it's producing more outputs much, much faster. So if you as a company now only focus on efficiency, that won't even bring you any results. It has never brought any results in only focusing on efficiency. It's always been about like uniqueness and how to stand out. And that's why where I think AI is then really lacking is, what is that genuine human insight? So what is that special sauce that you can bring to the table? That's what AI won't answer you, but creativity will. And it's a soft skill, but I think it's going to become the sharpest strategic assets that companies will have. And this is the opportunity that I see for our space. And I think the organizations that understand that and do not rush to just develop new functionalities and new solutions based on AI, but inject that creativity, take their time and take conscious decisions, they will win that race. And the good news is there isn't that many capability areas that can bring that capability or that sauce, that secret sauce to the table. And it's the designers that do, and that's our opportunity. And this is why design will be even more important. And I always say, like, it's going to move upstream. So we will move to where the opportunity really sits. We will move to the room and to the boardroom or the decision room where organizations decide on what do we want to be famous for in the future. And I think what we need to understand is that we will continue to bring that human insight to the products, to the services that we will offer. What has changed is the surface on where we're doing this. So we're not doing this, we're not designing screens anymore, probably in the future, and we will design less journeys. But what we will design is we're going to shape the logic and the behavior and the decision making of these intelligent systems. So that's what we're going to design for. So the questions that we will probably answer is, what does AI prioritize? Where does the human judgment enter? Where is the human in the lead, in the loop, on the hook? You've heard it all, yeah? But these are the questions that we will answer. And we will also answer, like, what gets automated? What doesn't get automated? And all of those are design questions, and they will come from analyzing human behavior and not just following what the LLM models or the AI is going to tell us. That's what we need to get ready for, I think, as designers. And before I will shift to more an internal point of view on what that means for us as a role and how we learn and how we can get it ready for that, I want to give you one example of a company that is doing this quite well right now, that is moving basically in a different direction that the mainstream companies are doing right now, and that is IKEA. So what IKEA has been doing recently is the following. The one thing where everyone's cutting and moving for efficiency and automation using AI is contact centers. We're recording this, but my brother is working for Meta. He's responsible for the global customer service for small and medium companies who work with contact centers. And he's got a pretty tough target on how much he has to reduce his team size globally. And we're seeing that happening everywhere. Meta is one example. There's many others. IKEA was at that same moment. So IKEA was facing to actually lay off 8,500 customer service agents. What they decided is that's not what we're going to do. We're going to go for a different approach. We're not going to let go of the people, but we're actually going to ask ourselves, what can these people do and where can they add value? And what became quite obvious is that the customer or the contact center agents were the one that knew the catalog and the products inside out. They knew all the little details about the different products, what was selling well, what people were struggling with, what questions they had. And they also knew their customers really well. So they had a unique knowledge. They had a unique knowledge about the value of the products of IKEA, but also how it was seen, how the customers were seeing IKEA and what they were struggling with. So they've used this workforce, and instead of laying them off, they retrained them as interior designers. So they're now the ones like deciding what are the next products that we're going to launch, that we're going to decide how are we going to leverage AI in that journey. Where does it stop? Where does it start? And they, in some articles, they say that they can already see that in the revenue. They said they made additional revenue of $1.4 billion, which is massive even for IKEA. But I think it's an excellent example where a company took the choice of like, yes, we're automating things and we're becoming more efficient, but instead of laying it off, we're really looking at that unique value that this workforce has and how we can put this in a different place in the organization. So let's pivot. I explained to you what I think our opportunity, the market opportunity is, and where our future role can be. But what's equally important is how do we get ready for this? And what does that mean for us as teams? And I want to reflect a little bit on what I've been seeing with my team. I've said on this, or I put on the slides, AI anxiety is real. And I think it's something that we don't talk often about. I had this temperature check in the beginning, and I could see that some people were leaning to both edges. I feel like when you look at LinkedIn, when you attend conferences, it's too much about everyone's hyping it and everyone's loving it and everyone is experimenting with it. It's actually not what I'm seeing in my team. So I have a team of 50 people, and I would say roughly 50% are all over it, are experimenting and learning and adopting it, and 50% are not. And I feel like they're more frozen. And I've been looking into this because I was wondering, like, am I doing something wrong? Am I not able to motivate people? Am I not voicing it enough, championing it enough? And I've been looking into research, and it's actually a quite common thing because the change is so fast that people sometimes then feel overwhelmed and feel like they're a little bit frozen, like I don't know what to do next. And that is something that myself as a leader, yourself as leaders or designers, I think need to ask ourselves how to handle that and not just ignore it. And I've had a great conversation last week with an ex-colleague from the German team. And she's a mother of 3, and she just came back from mat leave for the 3rd time. She had quite a long break, so I think she was back in the business for 6 or 7 years when she now had her 3rd baby and went on mat leave. And she said to me last week that she's actually really struggling after having been away for 1.5 years, because she says the way of working has just changed drastically. And it's a completely different environment or situation as she found herself in after the mat leaves that she had before. And it was it was a great reality check for me to hear that from someone who was out of the business, because I feel the same. I feel like our way of working has just changed so much after in the last 1.5 years. And I mean, when I look now at my tab at the MacBook, there's so many AI tools now that are pinned to the bar, and there were none a year ago. So it's a real thing. And I think we need to appreciate that there is anxiety about it, and not everyone feels excited about it. So what I think is important, and is the most important thing for us as designers, is I call it, it's time to learn to unlearn. And I feel that's actually one of the hardest things, because if you have your routines and your way of working for years and years, it's actually quite difficult to step back and say, I'm going to do this differently. I'm not going to fall back to my routines or the way I used to do this. But I think that is one of the most important things we have to do. And I'm, for example, also looking at leveraging these tools, not just for doing things faster or different, but I'm actually looking at it right now and saying, like, what are my weaknesses at this stage, and how can I use AI tools to fill those weakness gaps? So 2 things I'm, for example, not good at. One is research and going really deep. And it might be attention span that I sometimes feel like an octopus working on 20, 30 different things at the same time. But I've also looked back, and like when I was writing my master thesis, the research part was the one that it didn't come natural to me, and I didn't love it. So obviously I'm trying to use AI to fill that kind of laziness around research and helping me generate or get those insights and that knowledge quicker. The other one that I'm not great at is consistency. I think my team sometimes gets very frustrated by me, because I have like I have a strategy for the team for the year, and then I have 5 more ideas adding, and then I don't go back to the initial 10 ideas we had. So how can I be more consistent, and how can I, for example, build an agent that actually brings me back to what were the 10 things that we were focusing on? How are we progressing for it? So those are just like 2 ideas or 2 things that I'm trying to use tools for right now. I'm trying to unlearn things, but I want to hear from you. So my question to you is, what's the one thing for you, the hardest thing to unlearn? So if you give me a few insights. Are you able to see?
Are people able to see it? If not, let me just reshare the code again here.
Give me some context.
If anyone also is keen to maybe share and unmute, just feel free to raise your hand. So you can share a bit more context.
Yeah, that was mine. I think it's kind of obvious. Everyone knows I'm a feral feminist in my 50s. I'm focused on coaching women 40 plus to use AI, because they tend to be one of the populations that is lagging behind. And part of it is because of the training that we had as good girls. Good girls don't cheat, and AI occurs as cheating for us, because we were taught that we had to work harder. We had to have blood, sweat, and tears. If we weren't doing it all ourselves, it didn't have value. And that is one of the hardest ones to overcome for the people that I train.
Yeah, I love that. I've been in these moments where I was like, I was writing objectives for the team, and it used to be an exercise of like 2 weeks where it was heads down, and this time I only had a few nuggets that I fed the AI, and then it came out with beautiful formulated objectives, and I felt like, well, now I'm cheating. But yeah, it's a good one. Yeah. Great. What else do we have? I still don't quite know what I need to learn. Yes. Good one. Can't tell you right now. I can tell you, like, observing yourself and potentially seeing, like, what are things that naturally I'm good at, what are things that I'm naturally not good at, and see how you can leverage some of the tools for that. What else? To have the control over every detail. Okay, great. So I'm not saying that like with these things now you suddenly have a tool and that will solve you, but I think it's again a very interesting moment on saying like if we have to unlearn a few things, what are the things that will be quite difficult? What's also easy, and maybe we'll start with the easy ones, and you use some of the new way of workings and some of the new tools at hand to do that. So let's look at what we can do now to get ready for that change, to get ready for the unlearning or learning something new. Maybe we'll call it that way. And again, trying to just inject a few things that I've been seeing over the years is I've said in my team, I see some are thriving and some are freezing. And what I've learned is it's not exposure. So it's not about like seeing things, seeing the possibility of these new tools or being told of the new possibility of tools, but it's actually about like being brave enough to take the steps to experiment with it and learn with it. So for me, it's all about building a culture of experimentation and learning. Last year, I said to my team, you have to adopt AI. I literally was in the team meeting. I said, like, you have to do it. And I made everyone in their objectives to write down one objective where they were focusing on the adoption of AI tool. And then when I looked at it in the end of the year, I was like, well, that didn't really work. It led to some really loving it, but some, again, as I said, freezing. So I think that is the wrong thing to do. So I'm trying something new, and that is about not demanding and telling people to do things, but building the right culture that allows everyone to experiment and to learn. And that culture is for leaders. So I'll have a slide as well for individuals, but for leaders, I've written down 3 things that I think are quite important for us to enable that experimentation culture and that learning culture. One is access, create easy access. I've said, again, 12 months ago, I said to my team, just tell me what kind of tools you need and I'll make it happen. And I thought that was enough, but it wasn't. I didn't get 20 emails and saying like, I wanted to test this tool. I want to experiment with that tool. So what I now changed is like, I'm just listening and seeing what's going on, and I make sure that people can access tools. I get the licenses. I have an experimentation environment set up for them to make that access very easy for them, so that they don't feel like they need to justify now why they want to test a new tool, but they have easy access to it, and that barrier just decreases, and they can start experimenting in a safe space without needing to talk about it much, without needing to ask for permission. The second one is create moments of possibilities. So my responsibility, and I think that all responsibility of all leaders, is like, make sure your people see those possibilities. So make them attend conferences, set up knowledge sharing sessions where people talk about it, showcase those early experiments, and just make it quite easy for them to be inspired and to learn about it. And then the third one that I think is quite important is, I called it model the progress and the uncertainty. As a leader, don't stand up and say like, I have it all figured out. I know how it works. I'm doing this. Just also share your weaknesses, share your doubts, share your failures on where have you tested something and it worked or it didn't work. Where did you get frustrated? Where did it actually lead to poorer results on what you were expecting? So just role modeling that learning experience, but also that unlearn experience. And for the individual, I think it's even harder. I think as a leader, you can enable those moments of knowledge sharing. You can enable the possibility to access those tools. But as an individual, you really need to step up and do it and embrace that uncertainty. That's how I called it. So the one thing to start with is that willing to unlearn. So just to be open to it. And maybe you don't know what it feels like and what it means specifically, but that willingness of changing things how you've done it in the past, I think will get you far. The second one is do and don't just watch. So I've seen a lot of people observing the change, but I've seen the power of experimenting and actually doing things. And I think that this makes a massive difference. So not just reading articles, but signing up for a new tool, testing it, model it against an old tool that you had versus a new tool, and just get your hands dirty, basically. And then the last one that I think is often also forgotten and not talked about enough is prioritize your own personal development, because that learning and that training and that experimentation takes time. And I think it's not healthy to say we're going to do that in after hours. We're going to do that on the weekends. We as human beings also need moments where we don't do this, and we don't work, and we don't think about our future role, and we don't think about our craft. But that means that you then prioritize this within your workspace. So it's about like discipline and saying like, I don't know, every Friday I'm blocking 2 hours, or I find these moments where I do this during the workday and not in the outside hours. First of all, to just make this part of your role and your job, but also to just protect yourself and your well-being and your sanity, because it's a wild world out there. Those were like the nuggets I wanted to give you. I wanted to end with 3 things that you could start doing tomorrow. And they touch both on the first part of that little keynote on where is our future role and where is our possibility in our future, and then also about how do I need to change to be ready for it. So the first thing you could do is test that hypothesis that I was just sharing in the beginning around how can creativity and unique thoughts lead to better results. So you could take one workflow that you have and you run an experiment where you say, I run this with just prompting the AI with like some basic prompts and let it run it, versus I prompt and I start with a blank piece of paper. I think about like what's unique, what do I want this to feel like, what should it do, what shouldn't it do, and then run the AI and just compare these 2 results and see if there's a difference in the quality of output that you get. The second one that you could do is protect 1 hour of experimentation, make it visible. So both if you're leading a team, protect an hour next week of your team where they come together and they experiment and they learn and they share. And you really point out as a moment of sharing and learning. Individually, you can do the same, right? You can block 1 hour where you test something next week and go and share it with the team and see how it resonates. And then the last one is, this is more for us as individual. It goes into that like make space and prioritize. So pick one thing that you really want to explore in the next month, that you want to test in a new way of working, but drop something else. So make a conscious choice of like, I'm adding something on my table to elevate my role, to elevate my capability, but that also means I'm doing one thing less, and then just go deep and see where you get to in a month. That's it. I want to end with a little bit from the beginning. I opened up with that saying that I've become fan of design because I learned that it was around understanding that uniqueness that user need and then designing your products around it. I then said we might lose our seat at the table, and I just want to finish on that. I actually think, and I'm not just saying that we didn't lose our seat at the table. I think if we do the things right, and if we tell people the opportunity of not just going with abundance and sameness, but with uniqueness and with creativity and the human spiciness, we actually have a chance to get a bigger seat at the table. That's it.
Love that. Thank you, Stephanie. Guys, feel free to unmute and let's give Stephanie a bit of let's give her a thank you, you know, for everything she shared, because it was really great, and really appreciate how vulnerable you became during the talk in terms of sharing what has worked with you as a leader, where are the things you might have stumbled along in your journey, and where you're actually trying to experiment with now, both personally and with your team. So it's really super nice that you also ended on such a hopeful note for for design in general, and how people and their teams can like really have a seat back at the table.
Yeah.
And yeah, thank you. Thanks, Stephanie. Hope it was fun for you as well. So I guess we now that we have around 12 minutes, I'd love to open the floor for some questions or sharing. So if you have anything that you'd love to ask Stephanie, feel free to just raise your hand and yeah, ask away. And John, yes, feel free to
Hi,
unmute.
thank you so much, Jessica and Stephanie. I really appreciate the presentation. I was curious, in our organization, we have found that as we have advanced our skills with AI, we use it extensively, that we've had to double down even deeper on certain leadership skills, the ability to hold effective structured dialogue, the ability to forge consensus around sometimes there's less human friction with AI in that it comes up with beautiful systems that people have trouble living within, executing, and demonstrating the safety skills that are required to make the organization successful. So we have found failure modes with using AI extensively where people follow the plan and the process, but they're not skilled with the methodologies of executing. They don't model the behaviors. And so it becomes like a cultureless AI perfect system. Can you comment on that?
Yeah. I think we have to take deliberate choices where we use AI and where we don't. And I think when it comes to leadership, the number one thing is human connection and human relationship. So I'm not sure if it really goes into what your organization is experimenting with right now, but I think like conversations with employees around goals, around behaviors, around conflict management, those need to be truly human. And I don't think we should prompt an AI to tell us how to respond to that. Because people will feel it and will see it. I'm sure you can see when someone has written an email using AI, you can see it right away. And I think if you attend a meeting where it's about conflict management or anything of that sort, you can feel it as well if it's just prompted by an AI or if it's a human that deeply cares about that situation and about that critical situation. Jessica said, "I'm vulnerable. I'm happy to be very vulnerable." I had a moment like that a few months ago where I had a conflict in my leadership team, and I was just tired. I just couldn't find the energy on preparing that meeting where I was trying to solve that conflict. And I prompted it. I'm like, this is the situation I'm in. Please tell me how to navigate it. And came back with that beautiful storyline on how I should go into that meeting. And because I was so tired, I followed it. And I felt very unhappy after that meeting because it wasn't me talking. And I think my people felt it as well. It wasn't my style, it wasn't my language, it wasn't the way I personalized it to them. It was more like how a standard process would be recommended. So I decided for myself, I'm not going to use that. It doesn't matter how tired I am in these very, very important moments that require relationship, that require humanness, I will rely on myself.
Thank you. I don't want to take time from anybody else. There was a nuance, but let me leave the floor open for others first.
I'm just going to, thanks, John. Thanks, Stephanie. It's really interesting. What's particularly interesting about holding these human spaces with people, and that's something I do increasingly, and I've had a very squiggly and storied career throughout design. Started with graphic design. I actually did some work with IKEA as a UX lead and all sorts. But now increasingly it's helping people with things like creative problem solving, and that means actually getting people in a space and taking them through, to your point, John, how do you do the methodology stuff? And actually on Saturday we were working with a group and there are a lot of young people, and there's certain things we're showing, diverge, converge, some certain techniques that closely relate to design thinking and other things that they didn't know, but there was no AI in that at all. And we're actually seeing loads and loads more people want that. Now, what we're saying is to them is, okay, there's certain parts, and it did come up because they were trying to make a how might we statement. Now, you know how difficult that can be sometimes. Actually, there's a lot of cognitive load involved in that. But they said, oh, can we ask, chat GPT or something? And I said, well, there's a point where you can, there's a point in the creative process where you've got to have that judgment to know when to bring in the AI tools and when not to. Yeah. So some of it's always going to be human judgment. And some of it is going to be, yeah, I can use it here just to do a little bit of diverge or converge, but it's never, all the whole thing. And I think what I'm quite pleased about as well is actually we're seeing more and more people who want to get into spaces with other people and learn stuff, which I would say is stuff that was valuable 20, 30 years ago and is still valuable, And if people call those soft skills, well, I don't, but forever skills, future skills, whatever you want to call them, around judgment, creative problem solving, all of those kind of things. So, yeah, I don't know if that was a question, more of a observation, but please react, anyone, to that.
Yeah, I think I would love to hear the rest of the group. I think what I'm learning is we shouldn't forget to challenge the output of the AI, also in the design process, right? Like if maybe someone wants to use it for ideation, that's fine. I think we shouldn't stop it, but we need to look at the result and really challenge, is it good enough?
Completely
Agreed.
agree. I just wanted to add to Stephanie, but sometimes it is relatively hard to challenge, especially when you haven't built the judgment in something or the taste to understand what's good, what's bad. It's hard to challenge it when it sounds so credible. Like it outlines almost the thinking for you. So like building up that muscle is something that we just need to encourage or really refine more in teams, like as forever skills, as Steve
And
mentioned.
Cheska, just to add to that, I mean, that's a really important point, as in what we're talking about. I'm obviously old and grey, but there's young people who've grown up with, they are used to this stuff. How do we, which is a question I think we all have to consider, is how they build up that judgment and how they are allowed to do that and how we support them to do that, perhaps at different stages of the career. But yeah, I don't want to say any more, but thank you for that.
Thank you for sharing, Steve, and thanks, John, as well.
Can I continue on that?
Yes, Alex, go ahead.
Yeah, what Steve is touching on the thing that I've noticed recently in my own company. My daughter has been working for 2.5 years with me, creating and designing courses, but she's very young, and she actually hated AI. She also has she follows her studies of being a composer, so she's really getting away from AI. I also noticed this in just recently. Today it was I saw three commencement speeches where the Gen Z generation really booed on announcing AI. I really feel there is a split within the younger generation that didn't experience design process from years, gray, etc. And that's something I'm really worried about. I'm curious what your vision on that is, Stephanie, if you see that as well.
Yeah, I think I see different groups. I see the one that when I sit on the tube, everyone is now using ChatGPT for anything really. So I see people interacting a lot with it. But then equally, I've also seen this, that there's a little bit of like, where's the uniqueness of thought? Where's the spiciness? Where's my creativity? I think one thing that the new generation is maybe also quite worried about is all this talk about, do we need the juniors anymore? Can't this be automated? So if I was in their shoes, my natural reaction would be like being defensive and being like, I don't like this because I have something to bring to the table, and AI cannot replace me as a young spirit and a creative mind. So maybe that's also a place where it's coming from. Again, it's not something where I have the full answer. I'm still like 1000% convinced that we need that junior mindset and the creativity in the teams, and that we should not stop hiring for it. I think it's essential for our future. And equally, I'm also curious to see how they can educate me with AI tools or other things that they grow up with. But yeah, I think there's not one theme I'm seeing. I think there's different themes.
Yeah, if I may add my conclusion on this, I'm a Jungian coach, and Jung talks about the collective unconscious, conscious, and especially when people are individually feeling anxious, groups are feeling anxious as well, and anxiety leads to 0 or 1's responses, extreme responses. So the split is really happening. I see it within the young generation. So I think we as seniors have we have a full responsibility to focus on that and help them alleviate their anxiety. I don't know the answer to it, but it feels more and more like that picture that I just painted. It's very worrisome and something to address as well the older generations.
That sounds like a promise we're all needing to do. And I guess on that note, because I know we have 2 minutes in, and I just want to make sure that everyone has has had some room for reflection during this session, right? So if there's one thing that you'd like to experiment with, a promise or a commitment you're making, given what Stephanie has shared with us today, I'd love if you can drop that in chat. Like, what's one thing you're going to be experimenting with or committing to trying out next week, given what we've all discussed just now? And with the last minute that I have, I just want to again thank everyone for being here. I really appreciate that you took an hour out of your day to spend time with us and join in the discussion. I hope it left you with some inspiration and also actually helped you reflect a bit more on how we could develop our own practice, how we can sort of navigate all this anxiety and what we're seeing on LinkedIn. And thank you to Stephanie. I'm dropping some links in chat. So if you want to connect with her and follow more of her stories, I've put in her LinkedIn there. So please connect with Stephanie and also explore. Obviously, this is a Miro session, so I'm required to explore what Miro can do for consultancies and agencies, and link to our new landing page there. And I hope if this was something valuable to you, I hope you join our next Reframe session, which is going to be much more like it's practical around AI operating models with Neil McKee. Rounding that off. Thank you, everyone. Thank you, Stephanie. And I hope you have a great rest of the day.